My name is Jenny, and at 29 years old, I never imagined my parents would try to destroy my life over a house. I stood in my newly purchased home's doorway as they stormed up the driveway, faces twisted with rage. Mother screamed about betrayal while father waved legal documents. Behind them, my younger sister Rachel smirked, holding house keys I thought were for my home. My phone buzzed with Aunt Dorothy's text. They've been planning this for years. Get a lawyer now. My hands shook as I realized my parents never intended this house for me. Before we dive into this shocking story of family betrayal and hidden conspiracies, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you dealing with difficult family dynamics too? Please hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to make their own life choices, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless. Trust me, what my parents did next will make you question everything about family loyalty. The explosive family meeting happened 3 days after I closed on my house. I'd been so proud finally achieving homeownership after years of hard work and saving. But when my parents called demanding an urgent family discussion, I knew something was wrong. They arrived at my apartment with Rachel and her fiancé Daniel in tow, their faces dark with anger I'd never seen before. "How could you do this to us, Jenny?" Mother Helen's voice shook with fury as she slammed a folder on my kitchen table. "We've been planning for this neighborhood for years, and you just went behind our backs like a snake." I stared at her in confusion, genuinely lost about what I'd done wrong. That's when Father Robert revealed the truth that shattered my understanding of my family. "We've been saving money for the family's future," he said, his jaw clenched tight. "That house was meant for Rachel. We've been monitoring those listings for 18 months, waiting for the perfect opportunity. We were going to buy it and gift it to her as a wedding present." The room spun as I processed his words. My parents had been secretly planning to buy a house in my neighborhood specifically for my younger sister. Rachel burst into tears on cue, burying her face in Daniel's shoulder. "You knew I loved that area, Jenny. You knew Daniel and I were looking there. How could you steal my dream home?" Her performance was Oscar-worthy, complete with trembling lips and perfectly timed sobs. But something felt off about her reaction, too rehearsed, too prepared. "I didn't steal anything," I protested, my voice rising. "I've been saving for 5 years. I went through proper channels, got pre-approved for my mortgage, and made an offer like anyone else. How was I supposed to know about your secret plans?" But my logical explanation only fueled their rage further. Mother stood up, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "Don't play innocent. You've always been jealous of Rachel. Always trying to one-up her, always needing to be the center of attention. Well, congratulations, you've finally found a way to truly hurt your family." Years of buried resentment poured out as she listed my supposed failures, choosing a career in marketing over law, remaining single at 29, refusing to attend their church anymore. "You're going to sell us that house," Father announced with the authority he used in his business dealings. "We'll pay you exactly what you paid for it, not a penny more. You'll break even, find another place, and we can fix this mess you've created." The entitlement in his voice made my blood boil. They genuinely expected me to hand over my home, my achievement, simply because they demanded it. "Absolutely not," I said firmly, standing my ground for perhaps the first time in my life. "This is my house, bought with my money, my credit, my decision. I'm not selling it to you or anyone else." The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel's crying stopped abruptly, and I caught a glimpse of pure hatred in her eyes before she resumed her victim act. Daniel, who'd been quiet until then, finally spoke up. "Jenny, surely you can see how much this means to Rachel. We're starting our lives together, and having family nearby would mean everything to us. Can't you find it in your heart to do this one thing for your sister?" His smooth politician's voice made my skin crawl. I'd never liked him, and now I understood why. The answer is no, I repeated, crossing my arms. And I find it incredibly manipulative that you're all ambushing me like this, expecting me to give up my home for plans you never even told me about. That's when Father dropped the biggest bombshell of the evening. We've been telling the family for months that you are helping us find a house in that neighborhood, he said coldly. That you promised to let us know about any good listings. Everyone thinks you're going to help Rachel get settled. Imagine their disappointment when they learn you bought the house for yourself instead. My jaw dropped at the blatant lie. They'd been setting up a narrative where I was the villain before I even knew there was a story. Mother pulled out her phone, showing me text messages from various relatives. Cousin Marie is so excited for Rachel's housewarming. Uncle George offered to help with renovations. Grandma Beth even put aside money for new furniture. You're going to disappoint the entire family with your selfishness. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope and cruelty. Get out! I said quietly, my hands shaking with rage. All of you get out of my apartment right now. Rachel jumped up, her fake tears replaced with real anger. You can't kick us out. We're your family. Family is supposed to support each other, not stab each other in the back. Funny how family support only flows one direction in this household. I shot back. When have any of you ever supported my dreams? When have you celebrated my achievements without immediately comparing them to Rachel's or finding them lacking? The truth hung heavy in the air, years of favoritism and emotional neglect, suddenly impossible to ignore. Father stood slowly, his face red with fury. You have 1 week to reconsider, Jenny. 1 week to come to your senses and do the right thing. Otherwise, you'll learn what it means to go against this family. We have resources and connections you can't imagine. We'll make your life in that house so miserable you'll beg us to take it off your hands. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise delivered with the cold certainty of a man used to getting his way. As they filed out of my apartment, Mother turned back one last time. You were always the difficult one, Jenny. Always making things harder than they needed to be. But this time you've gone too far. You're either with this family or against it. Choose wisely. The door slammed behind them, leaving me alone in my kitchen, wondering how buying a house had triggered a family war. 2 days after that disastrous meeting, I met Aunt Dorothy at a small cafe downtown. She'd been mysteriously absent from family gatherings lately, and now I understood why. The woman who'd been like a second mother to me looked older, wearier, as she pushed a thick envelope across the table. I've been waiting for this moment, Jenny. Waiting for you to finally see what I've known for years. Inside the envelope were printed emails, bank statements, and documents dating back over a decade. My hands trembled as I read the first email sent from my mother to my father when Rachel was just 18. The plan is working perfectly. Jenny continues to struggle with her student loans while we funnel her intended college fund remainder into Rachel's future account. She'll never know the difference. They've been planning Rachel's perfect life since she graduated high school. Dorothy explained, her voice heavy with disgust. You were never meant to succeed, honey. You were the backup daughter, the one they kept dependent and insecure so Rachel could shine by comparison. The words hit me like physical blows, each revelation more painful than the last. The documents painted a clear picture of systematic favoritism and financial manipulation. While they'd told me my college fund could only cover state school tuition, they'd secretly diverted thousands to a shadow account for Rachel. While I worked 2 jobs during college, Rachel received mysterious scholarships that were actually family money disguised. While I struggled to save for a car, Rachel was gifted one for her sweet 16. Look at this one. Dorothy pointed to an email from 3 years ago. They actively sabotaged your apartment applications. Your father called landlords pretending to be a reference telling them you were unreliable. They wanted you living in that rundown complex, wanted you to feel like a failure. The betrayal cut deep, explaining why I'd been rejected from so many nice places despite excellent credit and references. The conspiracy went deeper than money. There were emails discussing how to undermine my confidence, how to ensure I remained single by criticizing every potential partner, how to make me feel guilty for any success I achieved. Rachel knows everything, Dorothy confirmed when I asked. She's been part of this since day one, playing the innocent little sister while reporting back on your every move. One particularly cruel email from my mother read, "Jenny actually thinks she earned that promotion on her own merit. Should we tell her Robert made calls, or let her live in her delusion? It's almost sad how proud she is." Every achievement I'd celebrated, every moment of pride I'd felt had been tainted by their interference and mockery. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Dorothy, tears streaming down my face. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I tried, honey. Remember when I suggested you might want to verify your college fund details? Or when I asked if you'd checked your credit report for unusual activity? Your parents always had an explanation and you trusted them. I couldn't break your heart without proof." The proof was overwhelming. Bank records showed large transfers from accounts bearing my name to ones I'd never known existed. My parents had used my social security number to open credit cards when I was young, building credit they then leveraged for Rachel's benefit while letting mine stagnate. They'd even taken out loans in my name, paying them off to boost their credit while ensuring I struggled with high interest rates on everything. Daniel isn't just some random guy Rachel met, Dorothy revealed, pulling out another document. His family owns half the commercial real estate in the city. Your parents have been grooming this relationship since Rachel was 20, positioning her at events where she'd meet him, coaching her on his interests. He's their retirement plan, their ticket to the wealth they've always craved. The manipulation extended to the extended family. There were emails strategizing about how to present me versus Rachel at family gatherings, how to ensure relatives saw me as the problem child despite my achievements. They'd planted stories about my difficult personality and jealous nature for years, creating a narrative where anything I said against Rachel would be dismissed as sibling rivalry. The house was supposed to be the crown jewel, Dorothy explained. They planned to buy it, put it in Rachel's name, and use it as collateral for business ventures with Daniel's family. Your buying it didn't just disrupt their timeline, it destroyed years of careful planning. That's why they're so furious. You've accidentally exposed their whole scheme. As I absorbed the full scope of their betrayal, my phone buzzed with messages from cousins I'd once been close with. "Disappointed in you, Jenny. How could you do this to Rachel? Your parents are heartbroken." The smear campaign had begun in earnest, and I realized my refusal to sell had triggered a family war I never saw coming. "What do I do?" I asked Dorothy, feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of their deception. She leaned forward, her eyes fierce with determination. "You fight back, honey. You protect yourself and that house. Because now that you've disrupted their plans, they'll stop at nothing to get what they want. Document everything, secure your accounts, and get a lawyer. This is just the beginning." As we parted ways, Dorothy handed me one final document. It was a life insurance policy my parents had taken out on me when I was a child, with Rachel as the sole beneficiary. "Just in case you wondered how far they're willing to go," she said grimly. "Watch your back, Jenny. Your parents just showed their true colors, and they're darker than you ever imagined." The sabotage started subtly, then escalated with breathtaking speed. First, my mortgage company called about discrepancies in my application. Someone claiming to be my former employer had contacted them, stating I'd been fired for theft. It took hours of phone calls and document submissions to prove I was still gainfully employed. My father's banking connections were already at work. 3 days later, my mother appeared at my office during lunch hour. She didn't come quietly. "There's my daughter, the house thief," she announced to the crowded lobby. 29 years I raised her, sacrificed for her, and this is how she repays me, by stealing from her own sister. Security eventually escorted her out, but the damage was done. Coworkers whispered, clients stared, and my boss, Margaret, called me in for a deeply uncomfortable conversation. "Jenny, I understand family can be complicated," Margaret said carefully. "But when personal drama affects our professional environment, it becomes my concern. Your mother called our main office claiming you have a gambling addiction that might affect company funds. Now, I don't believe her, but corporate requires me to investigate." The humiliation burned as I had to submit to a financial audit of my work accounts, all because of my mother's lies. The homeowners association complaints started next. Grass half an inch too long. Trash cans visible from the street for 10 minutes too long. Paint color variations on trim that didn't actually exist. Each complaint required responses, documentation, and sometimes fines. The HOA president, Stan, finally called me directly. "Your father offered me $5,000 to find violations," he admitted. "I turned him down, but others might not. Watch yourself." Rachel's social media campaign was particularly vicious. She posted carefully cropped photos of herself crying outside the house that was supposed to be mine, with captions about broken dreams and selfish siblings. Friends I'd known since college started unfollowing me. Some sent messages asking how I could be so cruel. The narrative was spreading faster than I could counter it, especially since defending myself made me look guilty. The escalation continued when I found my real estate agent, Brenda, in tears at her office. "Your father threatened to destroy my business," she sobbed. "He says I manipulated you into buying that house when I knew they wanted it. He's filed a complaint with the real estate board. I could lose my license." I spent hours writing statements defending Brenda, furious that my parents would attack an innocent person just to get to me. My godparents, who'd promised to help with house repairs as a belated birthday gift, called to rescind their offer. "We can't get in the middle of this family dispute," they said awkwardly. "Your parents explained how you betrayed their trust. We think it's best to step back until this resolves." Years of relationship destroyed by my parents' poisonous lies. The late-night phone calls started next. Family members I barely spoke to suddenly felt compelled to share their opinions at 2 in the morning. "You're breaking your mother's heart." "Family comes first, Jenny." "Stop being so selfish." I changed my number only to have the calls start again within days. My parents had distributed it widely, ensuring I couldn't escape their harassment network. Uncle Frank, a contractor who'd offered to help renovate my kitchen at cost, not only withdrew his offer, but actively discouraged other contractors from working with me. "You don't want to get mixed up with her," he told them. "Family troubles, financial issues might not pay." It took weeks to find someone willing to do basic repairs, and they charged premium prices for the risk. Mother befriended my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, spinning tales of my supposed cruelty and instability. Soon, Mrs. Chen was reporting my every movement to my mother, convinced she was helping reunite a broken family. Other neighbors received similar treatment, turning my friendly street into a network of spies and judges. The workplace harassment intensified when Father contacted my largest client expressing concern about my mental state and reliability. "I thought you should know she's going through some personal issues that might affect her work." he told them, his voice dripping with false concern. The client didn't drop me, but they requested unnecessary progress meetings and proof of stability. Everything culminated one evening when I returned home to find my tires slashed and security cameras spray-painted black. Rachel's car had been seen in the neighborhood, but without functioning cameras, I couldn't prove anything. The police took a report, but said without evidence their hands were tied. That night, I sat in my vandalized driveway wondering if the house I'd worked so hard for would become my prison. But the worst was yet to come. A process server appeared at my door with an eviction notice based on fraudulent HOA violations. The documents were clearly fake, but I'd have to prove that in court, costing time and money I couldn't spare. As I read through the papers, I realized my parents weren't just trying to force me out. They were trying to destroy me completely. Installing a new security system felt like admitting defeat, but the attempted break-in changed everything. At 3 a.m, my cameras caught my parents trying to jimmy the back door with tools, while Rachel kept watch. When the alarm blared, they ran, but not before the system captured their faces clearly. The police arrived within minutes, but my parents had already concocted their story. "We were just worried about Jenny," my mother told the officers, tears streaming down her face. "She's been unstable lately, making wild accusations about family. We wanted to check on her, make sure she hadn't hurt herself." The officers looked skeptical, especially after viewing the footage of father wielding a crowbar, but without proof of criminal intent beyond the attempted entry, they only issued a warning. Rachel's campaign to paint me as mentally unstable shifted into high gear. She created a fake social media account pretending to be a concerned friend, posting about my recent breakdown and paranoid delusions about family persecution. The posts tagged mutual acquaintances, spreading the poison through our social circles. Former friends started crossing the street to avoid me, afraid of getting involved with someone potentially dangerous. The financial attacks intensified when I discovered my parents attempting to access my bank accounts. They'd kept old information from when I was a teenager, account numbers from my first savings account they'd helped open. While they couldn't access my current accounts directly, they used the information to convince certain bank employees they were authorized users, nearly succeeding in freezing my assets under the guise of protecting me from myself. My forced administrative leave from work came after father sent a formal letter to my company's board of directors. Filled with false allegations about substance abuse and financial impropriety, it painted a picture of an employee spiraling out of control. Even though Margaret didn't believe it, corporate policy required investigation of such serious claims. "I'm sorry, Jenny," she said. "Until this is resolved, I have to put you on leave. It's paid at least, but you can't access client files or represent the company." The neighborhood turned into a battlefield. Mother visited daily, sometimes with Rachel, always when they knew I'd be home. They'd park outside taking photos, talking loudly on the phone about my deteriorating mental state and need for professional intervention. When I installed a gate, they stood just outside it, technically on public property, but clearly meant to intimidate. One particularly cruel twist came when my parents offered my neighbors money for any information about my activities. Mrs. Chen, already under their influence, eagerly reported every visitor, every delivery, every time I left the house. Other neighbors resisted, but some needed the money. Soon I couldn't leave my home without feeling watched, judged, reported. Rachel and Daniel's engagement announcement included a peculiar request. They wanted to hold their engagement party at my house, the family property that means so much to us. When I refused, through my lawyer, they played victim to anyone who'd listen. "She won't even let us take photos there," Rachel sobbed to relatives. "It's like she's trying to erase our family history." The religious manipulation hit hard when Father convinced their priest, Father Michaels, to intervene. The elderly priest called repeatedly, quoting scripture about honoring parents and the sin of greed. "Your eternal soul is at stake, Jenny," he intoned gravely. "Is a house worth damnation?" When I explained the situation, he refused to believe parents could be so cruel, insisting I must be mistaken or exaggerating. The private investigator reveal came through Dorothy, who'd noticed the same car following her after our meetings. The investigator hired by my parents had been tracking my movements, photographing anyone I met with documenting my routine. He'd also been paid to dig up dirt, anything that could be twisted to support their narrative of my instability or unworthiness. The fake eviction notice was just the beginning. Soon I received notices for liens against my property for supposed debts cease and desist orders for harassment I hadn't committed, and summons for lawsuits that didn't exist. Each required legal response, draining my savings as I paid lawyers to fight the paper terrorism. My parents had weaponized the legal system, knowing that even false claims cost money to defend against. Everything reached a crescendo when the police called me to the station. Someone had reported me for making threats against my family, complete with fabricated text messages and emails I'd never sent. The detective was thorough, thankfully, and the digital forensics quickly revealed the messages originated from devices linked to my family members. But the hours spent in interrogation, the humiliation of being treated as a potential criminal, left me shattered. "They won't stop," the detective told me privately after clearing me. "Whatever this is really about, your parents are escalating beyond civil disputes. You need protection, legal and physical. This kind of obsessive behavior doesn't just fade away." He recommended lawyers who specialized in family harassment cases and suggested I consider a restraining order for my own safety. That night, I sat in my dream house that had become a nightmare, surrounded by legal documents and security equipment. Every window had cameras. Every door had multiple locks, but I still didn't feel safe. My parents had turned my achievement into a prison, my family into enemies, my life into a war zone. And I knew they were just getting started. William Garrison wasn't just any lawyer. He was a former prosecutor who specialized in family fraud and harassment cases. When he reviewed my evidence during our first meeting, his eyes lit up with righteous anger. "In 30 years of practice, I've rarely seen such systematic documented abuse," he said. "Your parents made one crucial mistake: they put everything in writing. We're going to bury them with their own words." Brenda, my real estate agent, became my first witness. Despite the threats to her business, she came forward with recordings of my father's calls. He offered me $50,000 to say I'd tricked Jenny into buying that house. She testified in her deposition. When I refused, he threatened to destroy my reputation. I've been in real estate 25 years, and I've never encountered such vindictiveness. Grace, my neighbor 2 houses down, proved to be an unexpected hero. Quiet and observant, she'd been documenting everything since my parents started their harassment campaign. "I've seen elder abuse, child abuse, spousal abuse," she said, showing us her detailed logs. "But this orchestrated attempt to destroy an adult child, this is something else entirely." Her security system had captured angles mine missed, including Rachel attempting to poison my garden and father photographing my mail. Dorothy's evidence cache grew even more valuable when cross-referenced with William's findings. The emails about financial manipulation led to discoveries of tax fraud with my parents, claiming deductions for supporting me, while simultaneously documenting their plans to keep me financially dependent. The IRS became very interested in the discrepancies between their tax filings and their private communications. The revelation about Rachel's theft came from an unexpected source: Daniel's ex-fiancée, Lisa. She reached out after seeing Rachel's social media posts, recognizing the manipulation tactics. Rachel stole $30,000 from your parents over 3 years. Lisa revealed providing bank records she'd kept. She blamed it on identity theft, and they believed her. But I knew she was funding shopping sprees and secret trips with other men. Daniel doesn't know about her affairs or that she's still seeing 2 of them. The security footage of father attempting to plant drugs in my mailbox came from Grace's hidden camera. The angle clearly showed him placing a small bag of white powder before my security system triggered. When William presented this to law enforcement combined with the footage of the break-in attempt, criminal charges became inevitable. The attempted frame-up elevated everything from civil harassment to criminal conspiracy. William filed comprehensive restraining orders against my entire immediate family, but the real power came from the evidence package he compiled. Every lie they'd told, every document they'd forged, every witness they'd tried to influence was meticulously cataloged. The HOA president provided an affidavit about the bribery attempt. Contractors testified about Uncle Frank's interference. Even the priest, when presented with evidence, admitted he'd been misled. My reinstatement at work came with a formal apology from corporate. The investigation revealed not only my innocence, but also attempts by my father to hack company systems for dirt on me. We're considering criminal charges against your father for corporate espionage, the legal team informed me. His attempts to access confidential client information through you constitutes a serious breach. They offered me a promotion and raise as compensation for the ordeal. The tax fraud investigation exploded when forensics accountants found the hidden accounts. My parents had sheltered hundreds of thousands in unreported income using complex schemes that implicated them in money laundering. The Rachel Fund was just the tip of the iceberg. They'd been defrauding various systems for decades, always careful to keep me ignorant, and therefore unable to testify about their schemes. The HOA situation reversed dramatically when Stan the president realized the legal liability my parents had created. Not only did they withdraw all complaints against me, but they also banned my family members from the neighborhood as security threats. Your parents tried to corrupt our entire system, Stan explained. We're lucky you documented everything, or we might have been sued for discrimination. The church community's reversal was swift once Father Michael saw the evidence. He'd been told I was having a mental breakdown, but the documentation showed calculated abuse spanning years. I've counseled your parents for decades, he said sadly. I never imagined they were capable of such deception. They've been removed from all church positions and advised to seek intensive therapy. Business partners abandoned my father like rats fleeing a sinking ship once news of the criminal investigation spread. His company's board forced him into early retirement to avoid association with the scandal. Mother lost her position at the charity she'd chaired for years when the financial improprieties came to light. Their social standing, so carefully cultivated, crumbled within weeks. As we prepared for court, William's team uncovered one final piece of evidence that changed everything. My parents had been planning this for years, but not just for Rachel. There were documents suggesting similar schemes targeting other family members, friends who'd trusted them, business associates who'd been defrauded. My house purchase hadn't just disrupted one plan. It had exposed a pattern of manipulation and fraud affecting dozens of people. The courtroom was packed for the restraining order hearing, but it became so much more. What started as a protective measure turned into a full exposure of my parents' crimes. William had strategically invited media coverage, ensuring the truth couldn't be buried under family influence. As we entered, I saw relatives who hadn't spoken to me in months, their faces reflecting confusion and growing horror as evidence mounted. Rachel's breakdown came during her testimony. Pressed about the stolen money, she initially stuck to her innocent act. But when William presented bank records, security footage, and messages with her affair partners, she crumbled. "They promised me everything," she screamed, pointing at our parents. "The house, Jenny's inheritance, connections to Daniel's family. All of it. They said Jenny was too stupid to deserve success, that I was the one who'd make them proud." Her confessions spiraled into revelations that shocked even me. She'd been stealing from our parents since high school, but they'd covered it up to maintain her perfect image. She'd cheated her way through college with papers they'd paid others to write. Her relationship with Daniel was built on lies about her background, her finances, even her age. "They made me into this," she sobbed. "I don't even know who I really am anymore." Daniel's exit was swift and brutal. As Rachel's confessions poured out, his face went from confusion to rage to disgust. When she admitted to ongoing affairs with two of his business associates, he stood up and walked out without a word. His family's lawyer served her with papers ending their engagement before the hearing concluded, making clear any business dealings with my parents were terminated effective immediately. Mother's courtroom meltdown became legendary. When presented with evidence of the attempted drugging, she lunged at me, screaming, "You destroyed our family. You were supposed to be the failure. Rachel was our retirement plan, our legacy, and you ruined everything." It took 3 bailiffs to restrain her as she threatened the judge, the lawyers, and especially me. Her refined facade shattered completely, revealing the narcissistic rage beneath. Father tried maintaining his businessman composure until William presented evidence of his corporate espionage and fraud. The color drained from his face as he realized the scope of charges he faced. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he turned to me with pure hatred. "You were an accident," he snarled. 29 years of disappointment. Rachel was planned, wanted, loved. You were just a burden we had to pretend to care about. Even the judge looked shocked at the cruelty. Extended family members began approaching William during recesses, sharing their own stories of manipulation. Cousin Marie revealed my parents had borrowed $50,000 for a medical emergency that never existed. Uncle George discovered they'd been using his business as a money laundering front. Grandma Beth learned the money she'd given for Rachel's house had already been spent on luxury vacations. The scope of betrayal extended far beyond me. The criminal charges were read like a grocery list of corruption, attempted breaking and entering, attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit false imprisonment, identity theft, tax evasion, money laundering, harassment, stalking, attempting to frame someone for drug possession, and more. Each charge carried potential prison time, and the federal charges for financial crimes meant no easy plea deals. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. Permanent restraining orders for all 3 family members with criminal penalties for violation. Recommendation for maximum prosecution on all criminal charges. Asset freezing pending investigation of financial crimes. But most satisfying was his final statement. "In my 20 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty from parents toward their own child. Ms. Jenny has shown remarkable resilience in the face of systematic abuse designed to destroy her life." The aftermath was immediate. Parents were arrested on federal charges before they could leave the courthouse. Rachel, while not facing the same level of charges, was arrested for theft and fraud. Their assets were frozen, including the family home I'd grown up in. Everything they'd built through decades of deception crumbled in a single afternoon. The house of cards collapsed and they were buried beneath it. Media coverage exploded the story beyond our city. Parents from hell. The house that exposed a criminal empire became a viral sensation. Other victims came forward painting a picture of serial fraudsters who happened to be my parents. The sympathy I'd lost through their lies returned tenfold as people realized the extent of what I'd endured. That evening, sitting with Dorothy and William in my no longer under siege home, we reviewed the day's events. "You did it," Dorothy said, tears in her eyes. "You stood up to them and won." But I felt hollow. Victory over your own parents, even cruel ones, doesn't feel like victory. It feels like surviving a war you never wanted to fight. 6 months later, my house felt like home for the first time. Gone were the security cameras on every angle, the constant anxiety, the fear of what each day would bring. I hosted a dinner party for what I'd come to call my chosen family, Dorothy, who'd become the mother I'd always needed. William, who'd become a trusted friend after the legal battles. Brenda, whose loyalty had cost her but who never wavered. Grace, my neighbor, turned fierce protector. And surprising additions like Stan from the HOA and even Father Michael, who'd apologized profusely for his initial judgment. My parents were serving their sentences. Father got 12 years federal time for financial crimes, while Mother received 8 years for the conspiracy and attempted drugging charges. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that their obsession with controlling my life had cost them their freedom. They'd lost everything: their home, their reputation, their money, and ultimately their liberty. The empire they'd built on lies and manipulation was gone. Rachel's situation was perhaps the most pathetic. Living in a studio apartment on the wrong side of town, working minimum wage at a call center, she'd been abandoned by everyone. Daniel's family made sure everyone in their social circle knew the truth about her. The affairs, the thefts, the lies all became public knowledge. She'd tried reaching out once, claiming she was a victim too, but I maintained the no-contact order. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Therapy helped me process the trauma of discovering my entire childhood was a lie. Dr. Martinez specialized in survivors of narcissistic abuse, and she helped me understand that my parents' treatment wasn't my fault. They created a role for you, the scapegoat, and a role for Rachel, the golden child. Neither role was healthy, and both were abusive in different ways, she explained. Understanding the dynamics helped me forgive myself for not seeing the truth sooner. The promotion at work came with unexpected benefits. My story had actually impressed corporate leadership, showing resilience under pressure and integrity in the face of temptation. Anyone else might have just sold the house to avoid the conflict, Margaret told me. You stood your ground even when it cost you everything. That's the kind of backbone we want in senior management. I was now heading my own division, earning more than my parents ever had legitimately. Dating had seemed impossible during the ordeal, but love found me anyway. Marcus worked in cybersecurity and had actually consulted on my case when investigating the digital harassment. His calm steadiness balanced my newfound wariness, and he understood why family dinners were complicated topics. You survived something that would break most people, he told me. That strength is part of what I love about you. We took things slowly, but happiness was possible again. Community service became my way of giving back. I volunteered with an organization helping family abuse survivors, sharing my story to help others recognize the signs of financial and emotional manipulation. Many were shocked that parents could be so calculating, but too many recognized similar patterns in their own lives. If my pain could help one person escape their own family prison, it was worth sharing. The garden I planted that first spring became my sanctuary. Each plant represented new growth, new life, built on honest foundations. No lies beneath the soil, no manipulation in the roots. Just honest earth and careful tending producing beauty. Neighbors often commented on how peaceful my yard felt, not knowing it was where I'd rebuilt my sense of self. Letters from prison came occasionally. Fathers were full of rage and blame. Mothers alternated between manipulation and threats. I had Williams screen them for legal purposes, but never read them myself. Rachel sent one begging for money, claiming she was starving. Dorothy drove by her apartment and saw her loading shopping bags into a new boyfriend's car. Even in defeat, they couldn't stop lying. The extended family had split into camps. Some, horrified by the revelations, reached out with genuine apologies for believing the lies. We rebuilt those relationships slowly, carefully. Others, unable to accept the truth, remained distant. I learned that blood doesn't make family. Choice does. The people who stood by me when lies made me look guilty were my real family. 1 year after buying my house, I hosted Thanksgiving for my chosen family. The dining room that should have witnessed family manipulation instead rang with genuine laughter. We went around sharing gratitude, and when my turn came, I raised my glass. I'm thankful for the truth, even when it hurt. For friends who became family. For a house that became a home. And for learning that sometimes the best thing your family can do for you is show you who they really are, so you can choose who you really want to be. Dorothy raised her glass in return. To Jenny, who bought a house and found herself. The toast echoed around the table, and I realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. Supportive, honest, chosen, and real. My parents had tried to steal my home, but instead they'd given me something more valuable, the freedom to build a life without their poison. As everyone settled in for dessert, sharing stories and making plans for Christmas, I looked around my dining room with deep satisfaction. Every person here had chosen to be in my life, and I'd chosen them. No manipulation, no lies, no hidden agendas. Just people who cared about each other gathering in a house that represented triumph over tyranny. Sometimes I drive past my childhood home, now in foreclosure with overgrown grass and boarded windows. The perfect family image my parents projected had been as false as everything else about them. But from those ashes, I'd built something real. Something honest. Something mine. The last time I saw my therapist, she asked if I had any regrets about how things turned out. I thought about it carefully before answering. My only regret is that it took 29 years to see the truth. But maybe that's what it took to appreciate what I have now. They gave me trauma, but I gave myself triumph. They gave me lies, but I found my truth. They tried to steal my house, but I built a home. That's the thing about family betrayal, it either breaks you or reveals strength you never knew you had. My parents bet everything on breaking me. They lost that bet, and in losing gave me the greatest gift imaginable, the chance to build a life free from their influence, surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what they can take from me. My house, the simple 3-bedroom ranch that started this war, stands as a monument to that freedom. Every mortgage payment is a victory. Every improvement is an act of self-love. Every gathering of real friends is a celebration of authentic connection. They wanted this house for Rachel, but it was always meant to be mine. Not because of the building, but because of what I'd discover in fighting for it. My own worth. My own strength. My own ability to choose my family. And that's worth more than any inheritance they could have given me. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed one of the most shocking family betrayals I could have imagined. Have you ever discovered your family was plotting against you? What would you have done in my situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, Please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of triumph over family trauma. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the family you're born into. Stay strong, and never let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your own success.